how it goes. All right, top 5 questions for the incoming 4 teams to the Big 12 as we sit on their last night of not being in the Big 12. They've got 6 more hours Central Time. Number 4, this is a blanket. Number 5, a blanket question. Who is the most QB ready for the Big 12? And I would say that this is number 1 UCF and number 2 BYU. But, so we could be surprised. But I think of the 4, you're talking about John Rice Plumlee being, maybe even in the top tier of quarterbacks in the league starting off already. And then Keaton Slovis is very experienced, but he's bounced around a lot. So hopefully for BYU fans, this is the one that he can really make his mark on.
Yeah, so most quarterback ready of the new 4.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Plumlee, very clearly Plumlee for right now. Slovis, I think there's, potential there. As far as Donovan Smith in Houston, I mean, he can't turn the ball over like he did last year for Texas Tech. But he's a good athlete who can make some plays. I mean, if he's on, he can definitely hurt you. But I wouldn't put him above John Rice Plumlee, and that leaves
Emory Jones.
Huh?
Emory Jones.
Yeah. He's definitely over Emory Jones, who's been on a couple of other teams now at this point and is on his third roster. But he looks to be the guy in Cincinnati. And yeah, I think John Rice Plumlee is certainly the leader in this category.
Number 4 is BYU's recent scheduling a benefit. They've scheduled a mostly Power 5 schedule for the last, half a decade for sure. Does that help them this year going in? I wonder. Probably the answer to that question is how strong is the roster overall. A couple years ago when they essentially won the Pac-12, I would have said, yeah, if that team was coming in, then sure. But, granted, they've been through a couple of iterations of the roster at this point. But I do wonder, maybe not even right away year 1, but can they be ready faster because they've played and they'll have veterans on that team who've played tougher schedules year in and year out?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this because I have debated it on a couple of different occasions when just writing about BYU or just thinking in general about them. I would think so, but I also know that, like, to what extent are we talking about is their schedule so much better than everybody else's? Like, yeah, you play this and that other Power 5 team, but is that all that different just because of their name than what Cincy was playing in the AAC necessarily when they were playing like a hot Houston team or a hot, UCF or whoever the flavor of the year was? I would think so, just because they've shown that they have no fear in going toe-to-toe and swinging with anybody, and they've kind of developed a reputation as well as being somebody who's not scared to play anybody. So I lean yes, but I don't have 100% belief that they're not gonna have any hard time at all. They're just gonna roll right in, and it's not gonna be any different. I do think there is an element of the week after week after week nature, and yeah, you might not have a bunch of blue bloods either, including OU, Texas, or Post, but you have a lot of teams that are like that tier right below that. You play an Oklahoma State and an Iowa State and a Baylor and a Tech and a TCU. I know it doesn't pop off the ratings meter, but that's a grind of a damn schedule, depending on how that's lined up. So I do think there will be some slight adjustment.
Yeah. Number 3 is Houston's – that's number 2. How fast can Cincy rebuild? Because they've been a little gutted roster-wise, and this is the most roster turnover they've had because Luke Fickell went to Wisconsin. You got Scott Satterfield coming in. Emory Jones, we just talked about, is the new quarterback. How fast can they rebuild and start to compete in a Power 5 league? Again, for them, they would love to be able to come into a Power 5 league a couple years ago, even if maybe it wouldn't have wound them up in the CFP because they might not have been able to roll through undefeated. But that team could have come into the Big 12 and won a lot of games a couple years ago. Obviously, they were in the college football playoff. They were afraid of no one and ready to go. But this is a very different team now than was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I just don't think they have an identity anymore. Luke Fickell was that identity, and granted, they've had plenty of other coaches who have had success there that went on to do great things. Cincy has proven that they can find someone else to keep the momentum going, even if there's little blips or little interruptions. So, maybe Satterfield's the next in line as far as that goes, the Fickles, the Brian Kellys, and so on. But, yeah, I just don't have a great grasp for them because I'm not super high on Emory Jones. I wasn't super high on Ben Bryant either if he had decided to have come back. Skill-wise, I think there's some talent, but I just don't have as much of a great feel for them as I do for perhaps some of the others because there's just a lot of questions about what's like this whole transition, and what to make of who they have on the roster and how good they could be as quickly as possible under Satterfield. So, yeah, they're just curious to me. We'll know, obviously, once they hit the field, how far along they are. But, yeah, that is a question to me is how fast can they get back. And look, when we're talking about getting back, we're talking about college football freaking playoff and not the expanded one, the 4. I mean, they broke through that mold of it can only be Power 5s, and that they shot through that. So there's so much potential there, but they did take a step back with Fickle's loss that really interrupted things.
Number 2 is Houston's schedule too tough year 1, and look, non-conference they have UTSA, which has become a really, really fun game to watch.
Buddy, that was 3 overtimes last year at the Alamo Dome.
Exactly. And that one's at home. But again, believe me, the Roadrunners are taking it very seriously with Jeff Traylor there. They've got TCU as their first Big 12 game, and it's at home. But still, a team that was in the national championship game last year. They go to Lubbock. They host Texas. They go to Manhattan. They come to Waco. They host Oklahoma State, who both you and I said when we were talking about our conference rankings, people might be sleeping on them a little bit too much because this is the kind of, laying in the weeds that Mike Gundy likes to do. And then at UCF to end the season, who most people think is the most ready team to have a good run in the Big 12. So it's going to be tough for Dana and the Cougs year 1 because I think West Virginia, has the toughest schedule of all of them because that also includes a really tough non-con schedule that they have. But I think Houston's a close second to that.
Iowa State's up there. Iowa State has a particularly tough schedule. But, yeah, Houston's definitely got one as well and probably a few more questions than Iowa State has. I don't think they're a bowl team right now. If they were to make a bowl game, I think that would be a huge thing for Dana Holgorsen. The good news is that at least on the field, he's not on the hot seat because they won 12 games 2 years ago, and they won 8 last year, and that was a disappointment because when you had Clayton Tune back and you had Tank Dell back and you had some of those guys, you still won 8 games, but that's not what you were expecting coming off of 12-2 the year before. You were thinking, double-digit wins again. So you're replacing some pretty talented guys. Donovan Smith, I said a few moments ago, can be very hit or miss. So there are a lot of questions, and there is a tough schedule, and that's why I think, most people will probably peg them under 6 wins. But, barring just his personality being, so abrasive that it, makes somebody feel like they have to make a move. Like he's not on a hot seat as far as I'm concerned, as far as the winning part of it goes. He's won 20 games in the last 2 years, but there's going to be a little bit of a blip in that this season because there is going to be an adjustment for them. I just don't see how there's not.
Yeah. And number 1, can UCF keep Plumlee healthy? Can John Rice Plumlee, I say Houston, I say UCF. Can UCF keep John Rice Plumlee healthy? Look, Brandon Hellwig seems to think that they might have the quarterback depth to withstand an injury like that, but I do think for them to make waves, I really think they need him to start 12 games. And he's a guy who runs a lot and very well, but that makes him susceptible to injury. The quarterback that they had that was backing him up, Mikey Keene, is not there anymore. He's off to a full-time starting opportunity. So this is going to be key to me to UCF. The best case scenario is keeping him, and then this is an obvious question of keeping everybody healthy, but I'm not sure if they have the depth, particularly at that position, to where if they lose him for a long stretch, they can have the start that they think that they can.
Absolutely not, buddy. I'm going to tell you right now, all the talk about UCF and them being the team that can best come in and win right away is revolving around him. You don't hear anybody else mentioned. It's all about Plumlee. So, that's the main reason why people are optimistic about them being able to transition better than Houston or BYU or Cincinnati. But they do run him a lot and use him a lot because that's how he's effective. and it did, take a little bit of wind out when he got banged up. So, that's kind of, to me, what it all revolves around is John Rice Plumlee and, whoever can help pick up the slack around him, but he's their star. And so, yeah, they need to keep their star upright. They need to keep their quarterback one upright. And if he can stay healthy, then we're in for some treats too, because he is fun to watch running the football. So, yeah, definitely a big concern, or a pivotal storyline for them this upcoming season.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for consuming this program. However